Welcome one and welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape, which you can listen to on any one of SB Nation's NFC East blog podcast networks. You can also watch this show on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. And if you do, you will see the full red October getup of Brandon Lee Gowton in honor of the Philadelphia Phillies. Of course, my Houston Astros have the bye, have the week off. It's nice. It's baseball season. Brandon, happy October, our first mixtape in the best month of the year.
I'm ready for another Phillies World Series run, this time where they actually beat the Astros in the World Series. So I'm excited for that.
Is that your prediction?
Sure, why not?
Okay. Well, it's a great time of year. We got a lot of sports going on. We're a quarter of the way through the NFL season. We have a lot of takes to fire off. The NFC Beast is a little bit on hiatus, but the NFC East is still rocking and rolling and thriving. How are you feeling as we do enter October?
I do like the step ladder nature of the division right now. Every team is separated just by one game. Eagles at the top 4-0, Cowboys right under 3-1, Commanders 2-2, and then the Giants 1-3. So that's kind of fun. That's all I got.
Okay. Yeah. It's been fun so far. A little bit of surprises, a lot of things going kind of chalk, at least how we thought they would relative to the season's beginning. Do we have any kind of fiddle faddle we want to do before we actually start talking about the football, or no?
We've covered this in the past because it's not new, but it's a little annoying to me how there are 17 games, not 16, because we'd be at the quarter mark right now, but we're officially not. But we kind of are. So that's kind of annoying.
Yeah, I saw, was it Dan Campbell? I saw Dan Campbell say something about being a quarter through. J-Ron Kerr said something about that on Twitter, and it was like, y'all are great, but not mathematically true. You know, that's all I'm saying.
Break after the first quarter of week 5, and then that'll be true.
Exactly. Well, no, right? I don't want to do that because then that changes the second quarter, because then like the second quarter starts with the second quarter of week 5. You know what I'm saying? And then the math gets really weird. Actually, how about this? After the first quarter of week 17, we say, okay, we're putting this quarter after week 4. And now the first quarter of the season is done. And we do that after every quarter of week 17.
It's too confusing. I lost the plot.
The NFC East has not experienced a change in divisional order from week 3 through week 4. We're now obviously entering week 5, which means as we get things started, the Philadelphia Eagles lead the way. Brandon, the Birds, the only birds in the NFL in terms of mascots, they're the only ones who get to be known as the Birds, despite the existence of the Seahawks and the Falcons and the Ravens, whatever. The Birds got the overtime win. This was your lock of the week on TGI Football, which you missed because it's locking against the spread. 34-31, the final. Jake Elliott boots the game winner. I'm very excited to talk about Ron Rivera, but he has to wait his turn. This is all about the Eagles at this particular point in time. Pretty clean game for Jalen Hurts from a box score standpoint, but this was a little bit of a, kind of pulling teeth performance in an overall respect, it seemed.
I was legitimately never worried they were going to lose the game. At the same time, I did feel like as the Commanders were driving on that final drive and sent the game to overtime, I did feel like the Eagles were going to give up the touchdown. So kind of funny there how that worked. I'm like, they're going to blow this, but they are going to ultimately win. And very dumb, which we'll get to, by the Commanders at the end of that game. But I'll save that. I'll wait for that. Jalen Hurts looks better than he has as a passer in this game than he did at any point this season. So that's encouraging. Still doesn't look like totally right overall. That kind of speaks to how the Eagles look overall. And I don't want to hear a win is a win entirely, because while you're 4-0, you sign up for that. And let's give some context to this. I think the Eagles, I saw for the first time since the 1998 Packers, they are the first team to lose the Super Bowl and go 4-0. This is really hard. What they've done is that does not happen. The Super Bowl losing team usually struggles a lot. For them to get to this point, they deserve a lot of credit. That being said, style points do matter to some extent. I think you know that. We're on the same page.
Good teams win, great teams cover. We say that all the time.
You can't be the 2020 Steelers who got off to an 11-0 start and no one took them seriously.
Or the 21 Cardinals, right?
Or the 2022 Vikings who went 13. No one was ever scared of those teams. And what did all those teams do? Well, they faded down the stretch for one, and they also went into the playoffs and were one and done. So you have, at some point, kind of have to get it together. The common thinking is, oh, well, it's amazing the Eagles are 4-0. They haven't played their A game yet. And I agree with that. And I still have hope they can play better. But with each passing game, as the sample widens, at some point, maybe this is just who you are and there isn't like a better result coming. I'm not ready to say that yet. I still have hope. But again, each game where they do not play their A game, I am only going to wonder if they can play their A game.
I think all that's really well said. By the way, the 1998 Packers did not even win the division, the NFC Central at the time. Do you recall who did? It's a really famous team. That's why I thought you would.
No.
It was the 98 Vikings, the Randy Moss, explosion, whatever. And they obviously lost the conference championship game. But so that's my point. Like, you would presume, oh, they went 4-0, like, automatic this, automatic that. But like football can be weird sometimes. I agree really almost 100% with you. I don't have any like strong disagreements. And that's kind of the take I've landed on, is that, we're at a fork in the road, and it's either this is who the Eagles are now, is they're just kind of a really well-rounded team. Like, I want to be very clear, like, it's always fun to take shots. But like, it is so annoying how the Eagles are 4-0 despite looking really bad at times. And like, I don't know that they've looked really bad for even like one whole quarter, but there is some really, normal football happening from them. And I think that this is why the term regression of the mean gets said so much in the offseason, because you see a team have this historical year. I mean, literally the 100th percentile kind of year. And so it's like, wait a minute, now you're not just going to continue. You're not just going to keep doing that. It's like, no, like this is generally kind of the way things go. And so like, I think you could make an argument, some would be stronger than others, that they could have lost almost every one of their games to this point. Maybe not the Vikings game. That was, although they struggled at certain times and kind of benefited from Minnesota turning the ball over. And I thought they were going to lose this game up until the very end, obviously. And again, we'll save the Ron Rivera stuff. But so it's either this is who they are. They're just kind of a team that survives, and, like survives is even a poor word to say, because it's like, in some ways, in some respects, they're blowing teams out, like the Vikings, like from a yardage standpoint, or the Bucks on Monday Night Football. So it's not as close as it kind of feels. So it's either that, or like things will stabilize and crystallize and return to closer to the norm that it seems like the norm should be as the season goes along. At the very least, and I think this is universally agreed upon, if you're 4-0 while you're figuring that crap out, like that's the best way to be in that process.
If you are not a big quarterback wins guy, I still think you have to admit this is pretty impressive. Like the fact that Jalen Hurts is the 7th quarterback in NFL history since at least 1950 to record 21 or more wins in a 22-game stretch. He joined Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Jim McMahon, Joe Montana, and Daryl LaMonica, who I definitely don't even know who that last guy is. But
that's really embarrassing from you.
Well,
wow.
I don't. I mean, sorry, I don't. Right, I just don't.
Read a book, Brandon. Jeez, I mean, come on.
Anything past like the past 40 years probably isn't even real anyway.
Well, you didn't even know who won the NFC Central in 1998. So I mean, even that's a stretch.
But think about that. Like, joke aside, like that's a crazy stat. And also, the Eagles are 21 of their last 22 regular season games started by Jalen Hurts, which since 2021, that winning percentage leads all NFL quarterbacks. Like, there's something to be said for that. It's obviously not as simple as quarterback wins, whatever, but they just do. They just win with Jalen Hurts. So that's pretty impressive. And I think one of the issues with the Eagles is they have to figure out him being like a non-factor in the running game. He just hasn't. He actually, as Benjamin Solak, our good friend from The Ringer, pointed out, Jalen Hurts has the NFL's worst success rate among quarterbacks on plays outside of the pocket. He looks slower. He had a really good 24-yard run in this game where he was getting pressured. He broke through the pocket, stepped up, took off running downfield. So it's not like it's not there at all anymore. But his other, I think it was 8 runs, and obviously there was a tush push or multiple in there, so that kind of
brotherly shove. Thank you to the mixologists, by the way. Had a lot of them chime in with that, and I want to give credit to them because they got to me with that before I saw Nick Sirianni was asked about this. Like before it became like a national name, the mixologists were hitting me with brotherly shove, a much better name for this than the tush push.
8 attempts for 10 yards. Like what is that? That's like, that doesn't make any sense for Jalen Hurts. That's not a number. So I get having to protect yourself and wanting to slide. I get that, but there has to be it's a fine line because you obviously do want him to protect himself above all else, but you can't just be like, oh, now he's just a non-factor in the running game. No, you can't. Like, that's not good enough. You have to bridge a gap between Jalen Hurts being a non-factor in the running game and Jalen Hurts being reckless. There has to be some middle ground there that they can do a better job of finding. So that's something that's not really good, and that's part of why the offense, I think, doesn't look totally right now, because if you can't just take Jalen Hurts' legs out of the equation entirely.
And you also can't rely completely on them, right? Like they did early in that Vikings game. Like it doesn't just have to be like the Jalen Hurts leg show. But Hurts is I don't want to say like he's avoiding criticism because he's the quarterback of a 4-0 team, but like definitely not playing like the MVP caliber player that everybody saw him play as last season. He has a lower EPA per play than these quarterbacks. These are just ones to list that are notable. Lamar Jackson, which I know makes you very happy. Kirk Cousins, which equally thrills you, I'm certain. Josh Dobbs has a higher EPA per play than Jalen Hurts at this moment in time. Jimmy Garoppolo, CJ Stroud, although Stroud's been amazing. Jordan Love, even despite the last couple of weeks. I mean, and even Anthony Richardson has him just edged out by one, what is this, 100th or whatever of a decimal place. And again, like if things return to form or whatever, then it's like, oh, who cares? They're so great that they went 4-0 while they were bad. But if this is, the beginning of some sort of decline or regression or whatever, that is, I think, cause for concern, because while the Eagles are 4-0, and we'll obviously talk about the future in a little bit. The Rams this week is tricky. The Jets look a little bit pluckier at the very least, although I doubt you're personally concerned. Then the Dolphins coming up. And then that Dallas game right before the bye kicks off a really tough 4-game stretch with the bye obviously baked in there.
Yeah. That's why they have to play better, because they're not going to keep getting the teams they have played. And it's just, I really did feel good about that being a lock. Like, I think now there was some weirdness in this game, should say. A lot of this is a weird stat, you have to admit. Since the start of, I believe, 2021, the 3 games where the Eagles have given up the most first downs due to penalties, and it's like 5, 5, and 4, I think, all against the Commanders. I don't know how it keeps happening somehow against the Commanders, but every time they play the Commanders, the flags start to come out, and they just get like an unusual amount of benefit relative to all the other Eagles games. So that was weird. Obviously, last year's Commanders game was weird. There was one egregiously bad penalty where the refs called it on Zach Cunningham. It wasn't even him. It was Nicholas Morrow. And then you look at it, and I mean, maybe his pinky touches Curtis Samuel, and they call defensive holding to wipe out a stop on the opening drive that would have been 3 points instead of 7 points. So, officiating to me shouldn't be a factor at all when you're 10 or 9.5 point favorites like the Eagles were. You should be beating them so bad that it doesn't impact the game. But there was weird stuff happening, even beyond the ref stuff. Like, Sam Howell got hit as he threw a ball up into the air. It was like a pop fly. Terrell Edmonds couldn't catch it. The Commanders fumbled into the end zone. They happened to recover it. The Commanders had a play where Antonio Gibson is in the backfield. He drops the ball. Like, it's a football. How many times would you drop a ball? Would it literally just bounce right back up into your hands? That's insane. That's like an insane fumble luck. So they had some weird stuff going on like that, which I ended up, that's why I said earlier at the beginning, I wasn't worried about the Eagles losing this game, in part because I thought like the Commanders got so many breaks to get up like they did, and only by 7 points at the half. I thought things would even out a little bit in the Eagles' favor, and they ultimately did. You had that completion, which was not a completion, to Terry McLaurin along the sideline in overtime, where it was very close to being in, but McLaurin stepped on like Reed Blankenship's hand, and therefore was not on the field until his foot was actually out of bounds. So things broke out even a little bit towards the end there. But there is like this weird Commanders got very fortunate in some spots thing going on that I think made the game a little bit closer than it should have been.
All that aside, it was a really interesting game to keep tabs on. Sunday was a really hectic sports day for me. We were talking before we started recording about the final day of the MLB regular season. So like I had all that going on with all this on the Red Zone channel. Like it was just, I felt oversaturated in a sports perspective. And so it was difficult to keep track of this. This was, I know you love fantasy football. This was the true like witching hour term that Scott Hansen loves to use, like kind of coming to life. And it was crazy with the way it went down to the end. I will say, and look, it's one play, but it's just, I find it strange how the Eagles defense has like these really exploitable moments, or has had these really exploitable moments this season. Like it's amazing because I mean, like they were amazing last year. And so like in this 2-point conversion situation, like they've got to have it, whatever, like to just like be so bad. Like, I mean, again, it's one play. And so like, I don't mean to make a mountain out of a molehill, but like, I expect more. I mean, I
Well,
really do.
it was 3rd and 17. It was like 3rd and 17. I think the Commanders were on their own 40 or something. Like, you got any of this pass rush going up against Commanders offensive line that's allowed the most sacks in the NFL. Like, finish the job, get it done. And instead, Commanders complete a pass to Bryman Pringle of all people to set up a 4th and 2. They convert that. They eventually get down to goal to go territory. But like, you had the game there, 3rd and 17. 102 on the clock. Commanders have no timeouts left. Like, end the game right there. It's really weird that the Eagles pass rush, they sacked Sam Howell 5 times. And even so, like, it didn't feel like they did enough. It didn't feel like they could have been as good as they should have been for how good of a pass rush they are. So, and we'll get into this to the Commander side. I think Sam Howell deserves some credit for that. I think he did a really good job of escaping pressure. I think his mobility is something that works in his favor in that regard. But still, Eagles have to be better. That's the bottom line. Simple analysis. They've been good, but they have to be better.
Well said. Okay, let's move on to the Dallas Cowboys, who gave Bill Belichick, I don't know if you saw this, like I'm being serious, the worst loss that he has ever experienced as a head coach in the NFL. And while I understand that these are not the Patriots of like their prime, like you can never take this away from me. Like,
yeah, I mean, I thought the Patriots would cover. I thought they would play competitive. They didn't.
You took them to cover, I think, on TJ Football.
I took them to lose, to be clear. Yes, but I did take them to cover.
38-3 was the final score. Very efficient day from Dak, not like a gaudy day from a box score standpoint. I know you were busy because the Eagles game had just ended, but he hit CeeDee Lamb. It was the first touchdown caught by a Cowboys wide receiver this season, and it was technically from the 21-yard line, so not a red zone touchdown. So wow. that was just kind of a funny, like, given all the discussion that's happened around this. Again, just kind of a smooth day on offense, and it could be because the defense showed back up. Deron Bland hit 2 interceptions, really kind of stepped up, obviously. Second game playing on the outside full time in the aftermath of the Diggs injury, took one of the interceptions, the first one back to the house. Dante Fowler caused a fumble that Leighton Vander Esch scooped and scored on. And the Cowboys caught Bill Belichick on film. Brandon, they caught him with his field goal block unit, kind of crowding the line of scrimmage, and took advantage on a sneaky, cheeky 2-point conversion where Brian Anger threw it to Chauncey Golston. It was the most like bounce back sort of game possible, which is what I thought we would get from them. Not to say like I'm a genius or anything. It checked all the boxes, and here we sit. I don't know where you have the Cowboys in your power rankings, but they're pretty consensus around 5. Like most people had them 6, bumped them up to 5. And of course, like all the blurbs are about like, well, are they that team or are they the team that we saw against Arizona 2 weeks ago? So that's where they're at following the Patriots.
I have them 6, but I mean, I think they're in that kind of tier more so of the top 5. Splitting hairs a little bit there. The Cowboys winning this game was important from a standpoint of this could have been a trap game for them because, okay, the 49ers are coming up in week 5. We'll definitely beat the Patriots after losing to the Cardinals. We'll definitely bounce back. No, that's not a definite. And I did think the Patriots, who have been this year, not a great team by any means, but they've been a team that's played, again, to the level of their competition. And they got boat raced in this one. And I think that's a really strong bounce back by the Cowboys. And now it's almost like, who cares? Okay, we took care of business as we should. Now it's time to now the real game is here for many reasons against the 49ers.
Yeah, and we'll get there in a little bit. So we don't have to spend a lot of time on this specific game because, like, what is there to say? Like, you know what I mean? But the thing I was most surprised about, like myself, kind of like thinking back on this, I had a Whataburger for dinner, which is the best thing in the world, late on Sunday night. And I was just kind of like thinking back to like, what I'd written already and like the post-game show we'd done. And my like biggest takeaway from it all was how, and I'm not like posturing like, oh, the Cowboys are the greatest team ever, but like how not surprised I was by this. And it was very different from when the Cowboys won in Foxborough 2 years ago. I don't know if you remember that. That was the CeeDee Lamb walk-off in overtime. And so that was the first time the Cowboys ever beat the Bill Belichick-led Patriots because, shocker, they were very good for a long time.
And so it was this much.
Right. Well, but I mean, still, but so like it was this big like thing, right? Like it was like, oh, they finally beat the Patriots with Bill, not just in general, but like the modern version of the Patriots. They finally beat them. Cool. And there was a little bit of that to beating Tom Brady in the wild card round last year, but even that was kind
Mhm.
of like maybe not
Yeah,
as
they were a
juicy. I
below
mean, it was
500 team.
right. You get my point though, but like there was a little bit of, and it was earlier in the McCarthy era. Obviously the first like kind of successful season because 2020 Dak had the injury. But I did not feel that same emotion after this win, despite the fact that it was, it's really fun. Again, like, oh, the worst loss ever handed to Bill Belichick, but like I told you and Steven this on TJ Football. There was an expectation that they would go kick their ass. You know what I mean? And like that is kind of a comforting thing. That doesn't measure at anything, that doesn't prove anything, that doesn't mean anything is definitely going to happen. But they have molded into a reliable team in that sense. I wrote about this and I tweeted it. The Cowboys are 3-1, and they happen to be 3-1, for the third time in a row. So for 3 years in a row, they have won 3 of their first 4 games of the season. The last time that a Cowboys team went 3 years in a row, winning 3 of their first 4 games, was 1985 through 1987. And some of that is Emmitt Smith missed the first 2 games of the 93 season. Otherwise, they probably would have done that then. But my point is like, and again, like, I don't mean to like just, like pull off these tiny little things or whatever and say like these, boom, like, give Mike McCarthy his flowers. But like, he really has turned them into a stable football operation. Like he is literally doing things that are uncommon for this team in modern history. And so like, I trusted them to get to 3-1 with a Big Ten win, and they did it even against Bill Belichick.
They did. They have the second best point differential in the NFL, just 1 point behind the Bills at this stage, and also above the 49ers at plus 67 there. By DVOA, I'm looking here on ftnfantasy.com, and the Cowboys are 5th. That's 1 spot ahead of the Eagles at 6. So, any kind of metric indicates they've been good. You also have the just emotional satisfaction. Like that's one thing the Eagles haven't had this year. Like, is that the Bucks win was kind of like that, but not entirely. But just like that, like this was a great win. No complaints, nothing to really quibble about, and it feels good, and it's nice. You're 3-1, but again, it's just all about this week. Like it's really all about this week because okay, you have this great game, you don't win this week. What does that mean? And then if you do, then okay, it feels great. It feels like you are really on the right track. You are really going to accomplish something.
Yeah, there's something to be said for you've won 3 games, but like you haven't. I mean, like I don't think Cowboys fans would trade lives with Eagles fans in terms of this season, but like you haven't won a close game, right? Like because you haven't had to, right? Like it's either been like you're on easy street or you're pissed off. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of the way things tend to go. We'll obviously get to the Niners aspect in a moment, but before we do, we're going to take Brandon. What are we going to take?
A break.
Welcome back from the break. While we were gone, Brandon, you told me the most favorite poster that you ever had hanging in your room when you were growing up.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. I can't really think. I don't know if I had a ton of posters. I did have, and I do still have this. It was in my parents' attic, or I believe, for years. I'm looking. You can't see it. I'm looking at it right now. I can't get it for you because it's under some stuff on the door. But I hung over my door. I have a Philadelphia Flyers big, like it's not a poster because it's like kind of cloth material or whatever, but a big banner, I guess, if you will. And that was really fun. Flyers are my first love as a kid, and they're terrible now. But I do love when they're good. I think the city has a different kind of energy. It's just a fun time of year too. When the NHL playoffs and that run is so, especially relative to football season, because football's out of season. It's kind of like I can just enjoy the Flyers as opposed to the Phillies right now competing with NFL season. So yeah, I'm gonna say my big Philadelphia Flyers banner.
Do you ever get mad that the Eagles don't have the same alliteration that the Flyers and Phillies do? Like Philadelphia Flyers, Philadelphia Phillies. It should be the Philadelphia Feagles.
Jeff Eagles. Shout out to
Yeah,
Jeff
I know.
Eagles.
I thought you would lay in there.
Who was an Eagle, by the way? Did you know that?
I know. Of course, I
didn't
know
like.
That.
I mean,
unlike you, I haven't only seen the 2023 NFL.
I feel like,
season.
well, I mean, obviously, like he was more known for being a Giant. That was the bulk of his career. But it is pretty funny that he did play for the Eagles. I'm very devastated that Brennan Eagles, former Cowboy, never played for the Eagles.
Well, not yet.
He's in the CFL. So
That's what I'm saying. Like,
He did
you
play
never
for
know.
the Stars last year in the USFL, which is funny because they are the Philadelphia Stars. So he did play for a Philadelphia football team.
Pulling the curtain behind the back, or the curtain back a little bit, pulling behind whatever the expression
Pulling
is.
the curtain behind your back.
That the day that he signed with the Cowboys, I'm talking to the audience now. Brandon sent me an article that he wrote, and he was so proud of it. And he thought it was
I
the
am
funniest.
still very
He
proud
thought
of
it was
it.
the funniest thing that had ever. And
Do you
it
remember what
was
the headline was?
it was like Cowboys signed Eagles or something like that. It was
Yep.
something stupid.
And you know how
So,
many page views that bad boy got? Like a billion, like so many, like just an insane amount.
But so yeah, it was like I mean, I don't think this is not obvious, but during undrafted free agency, we're very busy. And Brandon is too. But so like in the like onslaught of all that news, Brandon sent me this. And so I was like, oh, this must be like really important. Like, because he knows how busy I am because he's that busy too. And it was this stupid article that was about nothing.
The dumbest articles I've ever written for BGN have done like the dumb article I wrote about why the Eagles logo faces left.
Right.
The only NFL that is like the most viewed article I think in like SB Nation, maybe Vox history. Like it's up there. Like it's just so people love dumb stuff. So I'm happy to supply the ammo.
Anyway, the Washington Commanders lost. We don't have to necessarily rehash the whole game. Obviously, this is the one flaw in our system with going in divisional order.
Wait, I have one more thing on the city name thing or the team name thing. It is pretty funny that Drake London scored a touchdown in London. That's pretty funny.
Is it?
That's funny.
I mean, you know how I hate when people take like obvious things and act like they're original. So
Chris Long asked like how many players. I wish I would love to see a like database of all the players who've scored a touchdown in a city where their name, like Dallas Goedert would count, obviously.
Well, there's that. It reminds me of that scene in Forrest Gump where he's like, like Dallas, whatever. He was from Cleveland. You know what I mean? Like it's like it pokes fun at that, but whatever. Anyway, the Commanders lost. Again, I for me, this is really about the 2-point conversion at the very end. I was so obviously happy because I was rooting for the Commanders to win this game, and I thought they would. I mean, when they were up 7-0, it was kind of hold your breath, and it was 14-7. It was like, okay, maybe they're gonna do this. And it was 17-7. It was like, okay, can they hold on? And then it was like, oh no, they ruined this. And then it was like, wait a minute, they're gonna come back. Oh no, they are going to come back. Oh, they have actually come back. You cannot call yourself Riverboat Ron and then be in a position as a almost 10-point, I'm sure he was a 10-point underdog by some book, be a 10-point underdog, again, on the road, not just against a divisional rival, but against the reigning, division champions, the reigning conference champions, the like, for most teams, I would imagine, the kind of measuring stick with regards to how good you are. That's what the Eagles are at present moment. You cannot be in that situation and call yourself Riverboat Ron and kick the extra point to tie it. Big loser energy from Ron Rivera. Amplified in a big loser energy way by saying after the game that the reason he did not go for 2 was because his offense was gassed. What on earth?
What was the defense? If the offense was gassed, what was the defense? How were they feeling? Were they feeling good?
You brought that up when we were slacking about this. What I brought up that nobody brought up is like, okay, so the offense was gassed. Well, Ron, you won the coin toss. So like, were they not gassed 5 minutes later when they had to drive the length of the field? Like this is so.
Well, apparently they were because they couldn't convert and they had to punt.
So dumb. I cannot believe that. And I'm not out as the Commanders being like the third wild card team like that because like the third wild card team has been some poor teams already. In the 2 years.
Yeah,
that
it's not saying much, right?
Right. Or 3 years, I think that we've had it exist. But I mean, this is the difference. Like this is the difference. And I tweeted about the 2-point conversion attempt thing, and somebody, I forget who, so apologies, responded to me and said, "Man, remember the story about the players kind of whining to him that Eric Bieniemy was being too hard on them?" Well, yeah, I can kind of imagine if Ron is really that lax about things. Like, dude, you have to go for 2, and not even in like some stuff is like just a gut, right? Like you've got to go for it off of gut, but like the analytics are overwhelming that you have to go for 2 in this particular moment. What a horrible move by Ron Rivera.
Oh, just the context too. He's a lame duck head coach. He has to know that. he's probably losing his job anyway. He's not in good standing. Why not do something like so? Okay, so what's the worst that happens? You lose. Okay, you were big underdogs anyway. You weren't expected to win the game. You win. It's amazing. Maybe you actually find a
And
way to save your job.
and if you don't get it, everyone understands. Everyone says, "Dude, you went for the win." You know what I mean? Respect. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like it just didn't
You were the
happen.
worst
Whatever.
team.
Yeah,
The
but you win.
Commanders got outscored by like 11 points, I think, in the second half. Like you were also trending as the worst team. Like just do it. It's 2 yards. It just doesn't. It makes no sense. I said this to you in Slack when we were talking. The juxtaposition between the machismo, football is tough. Like there's so much of that energy, and then just the absolute cowardice of these coaches. It's like, how does that marry up? Where you're like, no, we're super tough, we're men, we're physical, and then no, but we have to kick the extra point. It's the smart thing to do. It's just so stupid. Obviously, the Eagles benefit greatly from it, so I'm happy about that part. But from a someone a proponent of making like good, smart decisions in general, I hated it. It was so dumb. I couldn't believe they weren't going to do it. Gave the Eagles a huge break. And Commanders fans should be furious about that because, I mean, it's just 2 yards. You steal the game. 2 yards, you steal the freaking game, as opposed to having to go. And the ideal outcome they got, because they won the coin toss, right? Now you have to go 75 yards. Like, how is that easier than getting 2 yards for 2 points in the win?
For anyone who like argues against this philosophy in general, like whoever the teams are, like again, so if you go for it, the like thing you have to obtain is converting the 2-point conversion. So okay, you have to go 2 yards, right? Like that's the one thing you need, as opposed to the alternative, which is you have to win the coin toss, which is literally a 50-50 proposition. And then you have to drive the length of the field, and you either have to score a touchdown, which would be the length, or kick a field goal, and then also play defense. Like from just a number of variables standpoint, that like it's so ridiculous to me.
Also in there is, this should absolutely be included, the Eagles have a really good kicker. They have one of the best kickers in the NFL. So it's not even like, so even in the scenario, what happened where they won the coin toss, but they punted the ball and it was a bad punt. But the Eagles didn't even need to get too far,
it was
into scoring
50,
territory.
54-yard field goal. I mean, like
they have a kicker who just hit a 61-yarder earlier this season and famously hit a 61-yarder earlier in his career. Like, so it's just, why would you go into that situation knowing where the opponent just needs a long field goal to potentially win the game? They can very much do that. Like, it's just, there's no good reason for them to not go for 2 there, and it's pathetic. And it just, because otherwise, that was a really nice game for a Commanders team that has not really, I think, done a whole lot this year to impress. I have not given them a lot of credit. I give them more credit. Sam Howell, I thought this was a pretty excellent game by him. This is a kind of game where you think, okay, maybe this guy actually can be a franchise quarterback here. They had a lot of things go right, but it's just all for naught when you blow it like that. And now it's just like, okay, you're not really for real.
Terry McLaurin remains underrated. Sam Howell, I agree with you. When we say played well, played really good, like there's admitted context there. Like I don't know that he's in the top half of quarterbacks yet, but like the return on investment is way worth it at this point in time for the Commanders. And like you have a potential, like the jury is still out on Sam Howell with Eric Bieniemy is in his year. Like, and that's the thing, like we're only 4 games in, but I'm at least leaning towards the direction of being, able or willing to say like that I'm nervous if Eric Bieniemy is the head coach of this team and Sam Howell is their quarterback. Like, I mean, that process seems to be taking hold. Like Eric Bieniemy seems to be having a positive impact on the offense. I do want to step to the other side of the ball. We sort of issued a show-wide apology last year to Saquon Barkley, right? Like that was the egg on our face. I think the candidate for that award this year, if it's an award that we want to hand out, I do think we should do that at the end of the year. Like take we were the most wrong on. Chase Young might be the clubhouse leader. Like again, maybe like he wouldn't have to do a lot to earn that award necessarily because we were that down, but like he looks like a functional pass rusher for them, which he hasn't looked like in a very long time.
This is only the second game I think the Eagles played him in, or third. This is like the third game the Eagles have ever played Chase Young in, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. He did look good in this game. Still a lot to go in terms of proving he can stay healthy and everything. But yeah, I mean, he's off to a good start in what is now a contract year for him since the Commanders did not pick up his 5th-year option. So, that just speaks to one of the biggest strengths that the Commanders do have going for them is that defensive line, and that can give them a chance. On the other hand, the other first-round pick, Emmanuel Forbes, still might be a work in progress. Still might
That's
not
okay.
be.
Takes time sometimes.
Takes time. Also, just it's a really tough matchup for him against AJ Brown. I mean, that guy is what, like 166 pounds. AJ Brown's like 210 or something. Like it's not a good matchup for Emmanuel Forbes. And there's that really awesome picture which you can see by going to bleedinggreennation.com of AJ Brown leaning over Emmanuel Forbes late in the game where he got the taunting penalty. It was actually a really bad penalty because then that gave the Commanders a chance to go on that drive at the end of the game. But still, in the vacuum of the moment, still very cool and fun to look at.
Are we ready to turn the page to the New York Giants?
I think you and I are looking forward to this one the most. I mean, we were not harsh enough on this team, clearly, and no one was. And that includes Giants fans. I'm going to call out Giants fans. I'm going to call out our good friend Ed Valentine, who I think just does a great job. But I think part of the problem with the Giants, I think I've said this in years past, they're not like, and the fans, they're not hard enough on the team. They're like, Daniel Jones is making progress. Last year was just like this big victory lap about accomplishing what, really? Beating
okay, like you don't have to do that. Like they were legitimate accomplishments. That's like it's okay to say that,
but not to the extent where this is your core now and you're definitely on the right track and you're locking into Daniel Jones and you're locking into this core.
No one is disagreeing that
you're trading for Darren Waller, who's 31 years old, and that's the move that's going to get you over the top. Like, no, that was stupid.
No one's denying that they clearly overreacted to the success. All I'm saying is the success was legitimate. Like it was objectively, concrete success. So just to be clear, the final score 24-3 on Monday Night Football. The Giants winless in their two home games.
Ben McAdoo's success legitimate in 2016?
It was legitimate success in 2016. Okay. Yeah, but
by the way, Ben McAdoo wanted to play Geno Smith over Eli Manning.
Oh, I've said that for years. Like, I mean, that was there were too many storylines. So everyone saw this on Monday night. 11 sacks on Daniel Jones. Like Daniel Jones is part of the problem, but
he's holding on to the ball for forever.
Agreed. But what's bothering me, we have a lot to say on this game, but I'm bothered that he's taking all of the heat. And I'm not going to sit here and say oh, you got Daniel Jones isn't the problem. That's not the case. Sometimes that is the case with NFL teams, right? Like the quarterback is just stuck in the dysfunction. That's not the case here. But I do not understand why no one is coming for Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll had a week and a half. He had the longest. He had the longest amount of time possible. Obviously, not counting coming off of a bye, to prepare for this game, and they were a disaster. Beyond that, the dude has some big loser energy himself going on. Dude, do not be pouting on the sidelines. Do not be tossing the tablet at Daniel Jones. This is a purely self-preservation sequence of moves to make it look like Daniel sucks, whatever. If Daniel Jones really was this bad, Daboll, and you really are this quarterback guru whisperer, who we all, ourselves included, hyped you up to be, then why were you not a much more staunch advocate against keeping and retaining him in the offseason? You signed up for this. You didn't obviously put together the contract. It's totally fair to put that on Joe Schoen, but you were definitely a part of the evaluation. So Brian Daboll, big loser energy for me. And again, you and I don't have a problem with this, but what are you doing leaving him in there again? He took heat for this 3 weeks ago after leaving him for getting crushed by the Cowboys. I tweeted about this. People were like, well, they're still trying to win the game. Get the hell out of here with this. You're not going to win the game. Why are you leaving? Whether you think he's good or not, you're freshly paid franchise quarterback in the game to take a beating. It's a horrible look in my mind for Brian Daboll.
They've been pathetic. They haven't been ready to play at any point this year, getting down big in all of these games. And despite that, they had a chance to make this a game, right? It was 14-3. They're driving. It's okay, the Seahawks, who were clearly better, but also weren't playing that well.
No, kind of a weird dominant game.
We're letting the Giants just hang around. And I was like, are the Seahawks going to blow this? And Devin Witherspoon, who looks awesome, of course.
Oh, agreed.
And the Eagles and Cowboys and Commanders will both have to deal with at some point later this year. Pick six, and that's the game, really. And look, I get that it's not only Daniel Jones. Yes, of course. But when you're getting paid the 10th highest quarterback salary, a lot of it has to be on you. You don't pay a guy that much money to just be a non-factor or for it to be not his fault. It's
Agreed,
very
but
much
when you're
his
the head
fault.
coach who's supposed to be able to like work with offensive, quarterbacks and all this stuff, like you cannot be like blameless. And I haven't seen a fraction of the heat for Brian Dable that I've seen for
Dable's
Daniel
not
Jones.
blameless. I think Dable is a lot to blame. I was calling him Ben McAdoo during the game last night. Yeah, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
again, like I said, the team has not been ready to play. That's just inarguable this year, and that has to be on coaching at some level. Like the players do not look motivated and ready. Obviously, the players have to take some accountability, but when it's every week and it's the whole team, And I
Um,
think really, at its core, one of the biggest issues still is an issue somehow, and this is on Joe Shane too. What is one of the biggest issues with the Giants in their post Super Bowl era? What has been like a consistent theme?
I mean everything, but the quarterback play, offensive
Well,
line,
offensive line
yeah.
specifically, they've easily had like one of if you take the collection of all the years, they might have like the worst offensive line from that total collection of all those years. If not, it's one of the worst 3 or 5, and they can never get it right. And it kind of is like they were talking about this during the broadcast. I think no team has invested more resources in recent years in the offensive line in terms of draft capital. Obviously, you Evan Neal there, so part of it is not for a lack of effort. But
Sure.
still, to get it so wrong, it's just so embarrassing, and it just doesn't give them a chance. And they, look, Andrew Thomas was banged up. Some other guys are banged up, but I mean, that's injuries happen. That's part of the equation. And it's not like, okay, injuries happened and you still lost a one-score game. You kind of just got unlucky. No, it's like you're not even playing competitive football. You're pathetic. And these games are at home too. You're not even on the road. You're not even like, okay, crowd got on you. No, you're at home. And the crowd last night, I saw, the game starting. Giants fans are fired up. Like, and I was like, why would you be? First of all, after like getting such an ass kicking, like against the Cowboys, like the fans have every reason to not be. In spite of that, they showed up, they gave the team the support, and they just nothing reciprocated back from the Giants.
So friend of Blogging the Boys, friend of mine, David Hellman of Fox Sports, he had a tweet once. I forget what game it was, but it was in the 2020 season. But it was something like, there's nothing worse for an NFL team than when like it's the day after they just got destroyed, and like there's this just like parade of tweets coming in with like all the stats that like prove how bad it was, right? This was kind of happening in the moment for the Giants. Like it didn't even take until after the game. We have loved to talk about, was it from 2017 through 2021?
Oh yeah,
The Giants
we're back, baby.
Right. The
New York
Giants
football.
and Jets had the fewest amount of wins. They were tied for the fewest amount of wins in the NFL. So Ed Werder of ESPN tweeted this out last night, or Monday night, because we're recording this Tuesday. There are two teams who haven't run an offensive play with a lead this season: the New York Giants and the New York Jets. I had a turn at this. I was really, really proud of this one. You mentioned being at home. So this is just with regards to Giants games, because obviously the Jets play at MetLife too. But with regards to the Giants, these are the number of touchdowns scored in Giants games in MetLife Stadium this season. By the Cowboys offense, 3. By the Cowboys defense, 1. By the Cowboys special teams, 1. By the Seahawks offense, 2. By the Seahawks defense, 1. By the Giants as an entire football operation, 0.
Pathetic. It's pathetic. And then we have to talk about you can't bring the fact that they're 1-3 up without mentioning they have to play Miami and Buffalo next on the road in both of those games. You're staring 1-5 right in the face.
Then they play the Jets right after that. Like, I know that they're not Miami and Buffalo, but like that's not we can't give that to them at this point. You know what I mean? Like, it's
even if you do, okay, you're 2-5. Like your season is basically over if you do not pull up. Even if you beat one of Miami or Buffalo, which we have a hard time believing that'll be true, I'm sure you're still 2-4. Like you're just in a really tough spot, and one of those wins doesn't count as like it's not like a divisional win, or it's just extremely valuable. You talk about the teams the Giants have lost to this year, the Cowboys. Okay, that's a team they could be competing for a wild card. If the Eagles win the division again, which is not a given, but I'm saying like that's a potential tiebreaker. They lose. The 49ers probably going to win their division, so don't have to worry about them as much. But somehow they don't. Another team that could have a tiebreaker over you, the Seahawks, certainly either the 49ers or the Seahawks, only one of them can win the division. So one of those teams will have a tiebreaker over the Giants and then same thing. Well, they beat the Cardinals. I don't think the Cardinals are going to be around there. But point being, not only these losses like really bad because you're 1-3, but they're also in conference and one of them a division loss. This is not the Eagles in 2013, where they started 1-3, but they had losses to like the Broncos, Chargers, and Chiefs. You all lost all AFC games. That's fine. You're still undefeated in the division, whatever, and in the conference. So yeah, these are damaging losses.
I have two final things, and then we can kind of move on and start to spin forward. One, I don't know that I've seen this, but like the idea that like, oh, Saquon can fix this. What? Like, like you know what I mean? Like, I like
Why?
obviously they're a better team with him. Like, no one is going to deny that. But like, this is a systemic issue. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and if you're Saquon, like, obviously it was a tough contract situation with the tag and everything. Like, why would you want to come back? And obviously, he could be tagged again, but like, why would you want to be back here with this? Like, this is a disaster. Like, I wouldn't want anything to do with this. My second thing, and then if you have anything else, we can hit it. But you mentioned our buddy Ed Valentine, who runs Big Review, SB Nation's New York Giants side. Everybody check it out. He does things I think article after every Giants game. This was a really great read on Tuesday, so everybody should go read it. The first sentence is amazing. It says, I think that right now the New York Giants are a very bad, awful, embarrassingly inept football team. And honestly, I might be being kind. But so then he has a sequence of bullet points in terms of things he thinks. And he does kind of talk about the Seahawks not necessarily playing a great game. But let's see here. Buy me some time because I'm looking for the exact thing. Go ahead.
With what? I mean, the other thing about the Giants, as we've talked about, is what do they do now? Like, because what do you do? It's not as simple as like, okay, you fire the coach. You've committed to this. So what do you do?
I found the line I was talking about. Great question, though. So this is a little bit further down. Ed writes, I think it is flabbergasting how bad this Giants team looks. This is a team that won a playoff game a season ago and on paper fields a superior roster. Then in the comment section, somebody took issue with this, said, no, stop making statements like this. This is a bad roster. And like, that's like, to your point, that kind of started this whole Giants discussion. Like, enough. Like, okay, you won the playoff game. Congrats. Like, we gave you all the proper credit in the world for that. It does not, like you say that I say this all the time. You do not get to pick up where you left off. Like, you have to start again. Like, I'm not saying the Seahawks are amazing. I know we both kind of like them, but like the Giants are not a superior roster to them. Like, what makes you think that? Like, what possibly makes you think that the Giants have a superior roster at this point?
Let's play win-loss prediction for the rest of the way. Obviously,
this will not be good.
It's hard to do in terms of, it's like easy to project a lot of losses when the team looks so bad, but that's where we are. Okay.
0-2 to the next two. So
they're 1-3 right now. They lose. So then they drop to 1-5. Then they play the Commanders in MetLife.
I'm not picking them that game. No way.
Okay. So then they're 1-6. They host the Jets.
I'm not picking them either. I mean,
1-7. They play the Raiders in Las Vegas.
I mean, maybe they split the Jets Raiders games. Fine.
Okay, so now they're 2 and what? I forget, but
6. 2 and 6.
Cowboys in Dallas lost. They're 2-7. Commanders at FedEx
lose.
Okay, 2-8. Patriots home.
Maybe.
I mean, give me a win or loss.
Fine, a win. I mean, let's be a little generous.
3-8. Play the Packers at home. Loss, we'll say.
Yeah.
3-9. They don't beat the Patriots and the Packers. Maybe they split.
Yeah, they split those. Yeah.
Play the Saints in New Orleans. I'm going to give them a loss there. Saints aren't great, but it's in New Orleans. Play the Eagles in Philly that's on Christmas Day. Yikes. I mean, not very fun for Giants to have Christmas Eagles matchup. Rams at home, Eagles at home, final game of the season. So total, we have them winning like what? 4 games?
Yeah.
That might be, it might not be the worst thing for the Giants to bottom out. I mean, you're kind of stuck with Daniel Jones' contract, so that's not ideal. But I mean, if you couldn't get Caleb, my biggest concern from an Eagles perspective right now is that the Giants would bottom out entirely and get Caleb Williams. That's the most concerning thing that could happen to me. I would not want that to happen. I want them to win a couple more games than that. And
yeah, I mean, and maybe they split, the Washington games. I don't know if Brandon's internet connection is buffering or if it's mine. I think it's Brandon's for the moment. I'm going to keep buying time because Brandon is frozen right here.
I'm here.
Can you hear me? Okay. Now you're back. You were frozen.
The screens jumped out for me.
The YouTube audience will enjoy because you were frozen like you were like surprised. So
nice.
I agree with you. It's bad. Like, I agree on the worst case scenario, but we can save that for another day. We have 4 more games to talk about, obviously. So let's spin forward. For this portion of the conversation, we go in chronological order, Brandon, which means we have to talk about the Commanders first because they are at home on Thursday Night Football, hosting the Bears.
Ooh.
I said this on Monday Football Monday. I know everybody's like dragging this game, and I'm not going to stop that, obviously, or fight that. This is a better looking Commanders Bears game than last year. That's my only
That
take,
was
which
awful.
I think is
That was such an awful game.
right. I think it's fair to say it's a better looking game than last year. Carson Wentz is not involved.
I think that
Washington,
was his last win. I think that was Carson Wentz's last win ever.
I think you're right. Washington is laying 6.5 at home against Chicago. Let me just say this. You've been anti Justin Fields for a long time.
It's worked out well for me.
I know. I want so badly to believe that last week was the beginning of something special, but I can't. I had already talked about this with you on TGI Football with Steven. I'm only chalking it up to it being the Broncos. I told y'all in my league of record, my fantasy league of record, I've got Fields and CJ Stroud. I played Fields last week. It worked out for me. I flew close to the sun and it was all right. I cannot risk starting Justin Fields on a Thursday night and having to live with it all weekend. So this is a CJ Stroud week for me, who looks great. I'm taking the Commanders and laying the points.
Always fade Justin Fields. It works out a lot of the time. Bears have not won a game in over a year. This is disappointing for the Commanders because, okay, you beat the Eagles, let's say. You go for 2, you beat the Eagles, and now you have a chance to get to what? They'd be 4-1. Like, you're feeling pretty good. So
yeah, with a mini bye, with the mini bye under your belt before you play Atlanta. I mean,
like you're rolling a little bit. Taylor Heineke revenge game coming up though.
He could get the Commanders Jordans because he doesn't have those. Because wow,
it's all coming together. But yeah, I'm taking the Commanders. I will not regret betting against Justin Fields.
The New York Giants are down in Miami. We've both said that they're going to lose, so we don't really have to dive into this. But they are getting 11 points, which I don't think is a problem.
Yeah, I'll take the Dolphins. I told you that Bills game because you and Steven both picked the Dolphins.
Yeah, we were wrong.
I was like, well, no, I'm not trying to rub it in. I'm saying the line tells you sometimes. The line told you the Bills were going to win that game. I don't know if it's saying anything here other than confirming the Giants are bad. Short week for the Giants, who are already bad. Yeah, give me the Dolphins.
Next up, in again chronological order, the Philadelphia Eagles heading out west to play the Los Angeles Rams. They are laying 4 points in the process. The Rams are. I would offer that this is definitely not the like easy win that we thought it was for the Eagles at the beginning of the season, and not just from the Eagles not looking stout perspective, but the Rams looking plucky and interesting. I'll let you go first.
Puka Nacua leading the NFL in like multiple key receiving categories. Crazy. Rams might get Cooper Kupp back. He's coming off of the PUP list. Not 100% that he'll play, but seems like he might. All indications in terms of Sean McVay have been that could happen. You look at Matthew Stafford being banged up. He had a hip injury, so I don't know fully what's going on there. I kind of want to see. So we're making these picks on Tuesday before we're looking at the injury report. I'd kind of like to see if he's actually like practicing or not this week. That's kind of a big factor in general, given what we have, making the decision with the information that I have right now. I like the points in this game because I don't think the Eagles have earned the benefit of the doubt. I think the Rams have been a little bit dangerous. Rams defense is kind of weird because it's Aaron Donald and I don't even know who else, but he's still pretty good and is a big factor. The Eagles are missing starting right guard Cam Jurgens for at least a little bit of a stretch here. They'll throw Pettit in as a backup, so that's kind of not amazing. Jurgens has been pretty good, I think. I will take the Eagles to win, but I think the Rams with the points are the smart play right now until the Eagles can actually prove they can blow a team out.
This is the Aaron Donald, Jalen Carter game, which is dumb because they don't play against one another. But still, I mean, you mentioned Matthew Stafford. It would be the funniest thing of all time if after all the Eagles Georgia stuff, if Stetson Bennett beat the Eagles. Like that would be really funny.
The one Georgia player they didn't get.
But obviously,
although Matthew Stafford also from Georgia, so
that's true. Oh my gosh, how great is that? Wow, this is a bulldog kind of game. I think it would be really funny, not from an Eagles perspective, but from a Brandon Lee Gowton perspective, for Sean McVay to be the one to finally beat the Eagles.
I hate him, but he is a coward. He's just on it. Like objectively, is a coward. My disdain for him in that regard is very valid. Obviously, he's done good things offensively, but
it's not even fair to call it disdain. It's just objective fact. You know what I mean?
He just is a coward. It's not arguable. But that matters. Like that's in these games, like he's not going to give you an edge in that regard. He's gonna do what Ron Rivera did and not go for 2 at the end of the game.
I would feel better about taking the Rams if they hadn't let the Colts back in the game. You know what I mean? If they had kind of cruised in that game, I think I might have picked the Rams.
They've been a weird team this year. They're kind of hard to figure out right now
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm definitely taking the points.
Like what is this team? This team that they might be one of the
they're
hardest
wild card
teams to figure out.
I think they're the second wild card.
They're a wild card in terms of like not just what you're saying as like a wild card playoff team, but they're also a wild card in just like figuratively because this team goes out and they beat the Seahawks. Was that in Seattle? They beat the Seahawks like definitively.
They destroyed them, and then they hung with the Niners.
They hung with the Niners, and then they lose to the Bengals, who look terrible, and then they like they go to overtime with the Colts, who have been plucky, but still like.
Not only did it's important to say they didn't just go to overtime; they collapsed. You know what I mean? Like they collapsed, and then at the very end, put their foot down and stopped it all. So that's what I'm saying. If they had not collapsed and just won comfortably, I would have picked them to win the game. I think I can't go there yet. But I'm getting closer, and you know how I keep saying like I'm going to give the Eagles the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give the Eagles the benefit of the doubt. I'm getting closer and closer to the middle of that line, just with the way they're playing, even though they're undefeated. So I'm going to take the Rams to cover, but I'll take the Eagles to win. But it's close. This is the closest I've been to picking against the Eagles outright so far this season.
Yeah, same. And the data supports what you're saying in terms of since the beginning of 2021, when Nick Sirianni became head coach, the Eagles are only 6-7 against the spread as road favorites. So not great, but in those same 13 games, they are 12-1 straight up. So that is a good indication for them. They typically win when they are road favorites. The only game they didn't win was literally the worst game of Jalen Hurts' career. He had like a 15.0 pass rating against Joe Judge's Giants in 2021.
Sunday Night Football. This is, I mean, I don't want to speak for non-Cowboys fans, but I feel like this is probably the game that everyone has been most looking forward to that their team isn't involved in. If you're not a Cowboys or a Niners fan, right? Like this has all. This is the Dolphins-Bills game of a week ago. Granted, that didn't totally live up to the hype. This feels like a big-time game. This is the first time Stat sent me this, who I will be talking to later on this week at Blog of the Boys, by the way. It's the first time the Cowboys and the Niners are meeting in prime time since guess when?
2020.
1990. Incidentally, they were scheduled to meet on primetime in 2020.
That's what I was thinking of.
They were flexed out of that game in favor of Joe Judge's Giants heading to Cleveland to take on Baker Mayfield's Browns. Dallas and San Francisco are both really banged up and both really bad. I'm sure you remember that. But the Cowboys are 3.5-point underdogs in this game, rightfully so, given that the Niners tend to own them. I do want to say something first, and I would love to hear your insight on the game before I offer mine. And obviously, I'll keep talking about it all week at BTB. Right before you and I started recording this on Tuesday, I was on Kay Adams' show, Up and Adams, and she brought up how Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott and everybody, how they have been kind of like being super honest about this, how they're like, and I don't know what you've seen, but they're like, this is not a normal regular season game for us. We want to win this game. This is effectively a playoff game. We want to send a message. This is the team that's bounced us. And I have found that to be very interesting. So Kay asked me about this, and I wanted to get ahead of this because I know some Eagles fans who listen to the show might see my tweet, or her tweet at least. I said that the Cowboys do not feel threatened by the Eagles. And I don't mean that in the way it sounds, but and I think you would agree, there's a track record from the Cowboys of, at the very least, hanging with the Eagles, beating the Eagles straight up with regards to those specific games. That is a totally different thing and set of circumstances here. This team owns them. This team lives rent-free in their minds. So this is a different kind of monster for them than the Eagles game is. That's not to say they don't think the Eagles are very talented, but they have to get through this. And so I have found it very interesting, once again, that they have been honest about that, because if they lose, then it's like, well, you hyped this up to be this big game and then you couldn't live up to it. But obviously if they win, then it's like, well, hey, you pulled it off. I mean, like,
you can't lose this game and be like, well, tough one. We'll move on to next week.
Yeah,
Didn't really matter. Just one game. You can't say it's just one game if you're literally saying it's not one game.
I'll let you go first on analysis. I just wanted to offer an explanation on that line because they tweeted it out. So I didn't want it to seem like I was implying the Eagles suck or anything like that, because that wasn't
the 49ers empirically own the Cowboys, as you just said. And regardless of that, they're just really good. They're like, I have them number 1 in my power rankings.
Same.
They are number 2 in DVOA. They are number 3 in point differential. They're just a really amazing team that has not lost in a regular season game and only has lost one game overall. NFC Championship game with Brock Purdy as their starter. So,
and
Cowboys,
even then, not to poke at something you love, but like he didn't, that game was what it was.
that's
Like
the game early.
you can't say like they lost or he lost that game.
He's not
obviously.
lost a game where he's started and finished. It's impossible for me. I think it's impossible for anyone. I'm not saying the Cowboys can't win this game. They can win this game. Absolutely. They've been very good this year. I think the Cowboys can win this game, but I think it's not fair to the 49ers to say they're going to lose. I think the 49ers deserve all the benefit of the doubt. And if they just so happen to lose, then you give the Cowboys credit for that. But I don't think you feel like, oh, I'm so dumb. I picked the 49ers to win. That was a dumb. No, it's not a dumb decision. I think it's the right decision. And the onus is on the Cowboys to prove everyone wrong.
Yeah, that's really where I stand as well. Like, I would love to be emotional and be like, I'm picking the Cowboys to win, but that would be based completely off of emotion because, like, you said the word empirical, great word usage, by the way, but like, the evidence is overwhelming. Like, it's not even overwhelming. The evidence is 100%. And like, I don't mean historically, like all time, like no, but in terms of recent memory, in terms of like once Kyle Shanahan got a stable quarterback, under his belt and in his system, like not CJ Beathard or whatever, like he has been the thorn in the Cowboys side. They have as an entire team, like all of them. I mean, and so, and they haven't, I've told you this before in stats, they have inspired the way that the Cowboys have built their team. Mm-hmm. They want to be able to stop the run. They want to be able to go to places like San Francisco and beat the Niners.
Yeah. Because the Cowboys had issues with that against the Cardinals.
So I'm going to pick the Niners in all likelihood. Like, I don't want to like officially lock it in because to your point, I'm with you. Like, you have to prove it. Like, if you are 0 for infinity, you know what I mean? Like at this particular thing, then like it's not a thing until it's a thing. And so if you make it a thing, then great. Like we'll all sit here and line up and pat you on the back. But until you do, like, we have to give the Niners the benefit of the doubt because they have shown with Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy that they can not just beat you, but that they own you. Like, they completely own you. And this isn't like, again, like the Cowboys-Eagles thing is different contextually, but it's not like, oh, the Eagles are 4-0, but they've looked a little bit weak. No. Like, the Niners are 4-0 and look unstoppable. So it's not even just that you've blown out teams and they look kind of catchable. No. They look even better than you do. And they have the like mental edge over you. So I'm very excited and hopeful for the Cowboys to prove me and all of us wrong, obviously. But I mean, yeah, how can you objectively pick against San Francisco? You can't at this point in time. I might pick the Cow. Like, I can't bet on this game in the state of Texas, but like if I could, I might take Dallas to cover.
I was looking at the odds here.
It's 3.5 points, but I mean,
like
even
the odds on it, not just the spread.
Well, what are
I'm looking at that here? So yeah, it's minus 115 for Cowboys. So to cover 3.5, so $10 would win me $8.69. But I'm going to be betting on the Cowboys money line because I will then win $14.20 if the Cowboys end up winning, and if they end up losing, I will not be so sad about losing $10, especially because our good friends at DraftKings offer the no sweat bet up to $10, so I get a 10 bet bonus back if I happen to not win my bets. But really, from an Eagles perspective, happy with whatever happens. If the Cowboys lose, great. I mean, that's obviously the preferred outcome. And if they don't, well, then the 49ers are no longer with the Eagles there at the top of the NFC, assuming the Eagles can beat the Rams and advance to 5-0. And yeah, so win-win situation for the Eagles.
You've outlined how it's a win-win. My last question here, and then we can pick our songs. What would have to happen from the Cowboys angle for you to go, holy crap? Like,
well, I mean, if obviously they blew out the 49ers, that would be concerning.
Well, okay, so like, but like that's obvious, but like maybe.
But I would still be happy the 49ers lost.
Sure, but again, like, what would happen that you would go, okay, this sucks. Like, I don't know.
I don't know if there's anything that can. I mean, a tie. I would not like a tie.
Oh, jeez. For sure. No, I wouldn't. You are on record at hating when people root for the tie. So get out of here with this. No,
I'm saying I wouldn't like it. I'm saying I would hate it.
Oh, what a lame.
What do you mean? I said, wait, I'm confused how you're confused by this. I'm saying I don't want it to happen. I would hate that would happen.
Lame. That was a lame note to end on.
You think I should be rooting for the tie?
No, I'm not saying that.
I don't want a tie. That would be the worst case scenario for me. That would be the worst case scenario. A tie is the worst case scenario because it doesn't damage either team enough.
I'm sure stats will be better at talking about this game than you will. So, or than you were. Okay. So whatever.
I mean,
is this the?
So I would hope so.
Is this the non-Eagles game that you've been the most excited for this season to watch?
I don't know about that.
Wow. Okay, fine. Let's pick our songs. Rachel, ever the early bird. She got the worm. She offered hers, and hers is "Feel So Good" by Mace. And she put, because it feels so good to be one of the only remaining undefeated teams in the league. I would offer Rachel that the Baltimore Ravens are not undefeated. Boom, roasted.
Tough one. Even though the Eagles are undefeated, I was thinking about going in a Halloween direction because it's October, but I think I'll do that a little bit later in the month when the big day is coming up. I was between two. I think I'm going to have to go with last year. A good friend, Nick Castellanos on the Phillies, talked about how, Citizens Bank Park, where the Phillies play, it's like the jungle, baby. It's 4 hours of hell. It's super
The
tough
Astros threw a
atmosphere to
combined no
play.
hitter there in the World Series.
And no one ever beat the Phillies there until I think it was that game, actually. So
no, that was
yeah,
the You're right. Then they won Game 5 there as well. That was the
yeah.
first one, though. You're right.
I'm going to the game tonight with my parents. It's gonna be fun. I think the Phillies
Very
are gonna beat the
cool.
Marlins. I'm gonna say Craig Kimball has been using this song as his opener, and he hasn't been great recently. But I do like the atmosphere. And again, I'm going back to the Castellanos part of it all, where he said last year that the bank is the jungle. So I'm going "Welcome to the Jungle" by Guns N' Roses.
I mean,
little hype song for you.
I have a problem with teams referring to their stadium as the jungle. Like, it's
because you're not the
it's too-
Bengals, and the Bengals play in the jungle.
Well, if you're any tiger and you want to do it, if you're actually any Amazonian, yeah, the Lions could do it. If you're some sort of snake, you know what I mean? Like, I'm fine with that. If the Diamondbacks want to do it, like, I'm cool with that.
Are you saying a Philly isn't a common animal found in the jungle? Do you know where? Do you know where the fanatic is from? That's right, he's from the jungle, baby.
Also an alliterative thing, the fanatic. So way to go, Feagles. But that's fine.
I think he canonically might be from the jungle.
Whatever. Okay. I mean, I hope you have a great time. Are you nervous about the game? About the Marlins?
No. Nope. I think the Phillies are made to play postseason baseball. The Marlins have, given the Phillies trouble in the past, fully acknowledged, but they also play in a stadium where there are no fans at all. And I think the Phillies fans jumping on them will be too much. I think Zach Wheeler is the Phillies' best pitcher. I think the lineup's going to hit. I think I'm more worried about game 2, where Aaron Nola will be pitching, and he's been very inconsistent. I am feeling less confident about that one, but game 1, we got game 1.
Yuli Gurriel beat the Phillies in the last playoff series.
Okay.
Wow, it's so good to have playoff baseball. What's that?
What's your song?
Well, you I mean, I guess you just did it with regards to the Phillies, not the Eagles, but you have been picking. We talked about like themes or anthems with regards to kind of
Rachel kind of did that for me this week.
Right. So shout out to Rachel. I'm going with an all-time banger that kind of describes how I'm feeling, but not quite. And I'm sort of trying to manifest how I'm feeling. Hopefully this time next week. But no doubt, Slept On band. You know what I mean? Like, really kind of all-time band. Obviously, everybody knows Gwen.
There's no doubt.
I'm going with. I'm hoping there's no doubt. That's part of it too. So this is like a double entendre kind of thing. Not double entendre, but double meaning. So no doubt's hella good, because I'm kind of feeling hella good. I'm hoping that I'm feeling hella good. It's a great song, kind of a low-key pump-up song. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't have the normal pump-up kind of vibes, but hella good by No Doubt.
Was it in Remember the Titans where it was Leave No Doubt?
I don't know what you're talking about specifically. Okay, let's get out of here. As we do, Brandon, I would like you to tell us something. This will be the past. This will be the past, everyone, but the future for you. Something that you promised to eat at the Phillies Marlins playoff game.
I'm glad you asked this. This is so there is actually this creation that you can search for, I'm sure, by Googling or Twittering, whatever. The Schwarberger. I feel like you're not going to like it, but it's like this crazy concoction. RJ's looking it up right now that the Phillies are putting out. It's like multiple
Oh my
onion
gosh.
rings on top of bacon. Oh wait, so it's here's how it is from top to bottom. I'm gonna read for the people not being
You should
able
go bottom
to
to top, I think.
look at it here. Okay, I'll do from bottom to top. Here's a picture of it. Bun, smoked barbecue brisket, like a thick layer of that.
Right.
Half-pound burger, Cooper Sharp American cheese, cherry pepper relish. I love cherry pepper relish. Bacon, onion ring, big onion rings here too, by the way. Bun, and then an onion ring on top of that. So I'm going for that.
That's a great selection. I like all of this. So you were wrong about this.
This is
I
kind of
have
like a
two.
little birthday gift for me too. So like I'm kind of, I'm treating myself here. I'm going all out.
Yeah. Treat yourself. Yeah, that's why we love the month of October. So I have two questions on this. One,
Okay.
the picture I'm looking at, it looks kind of like the size of a slider. Is that accurate in your
No, it's
understanding?
big. No. I'm
Like
pretty
like
sure it's
the like
big.
the circumference is really big, like really wide.
I don't know, but I mean, look, it's look at all the things that are in it. My understanding is it's
No, but
fairly big.
like it looks like this, like the size of the palm of my hand, like from a
It's not
width
a
standpoint. That's
slider.
what I'm saying.
It's a half-pound
I mean,
burger. A half-pound burger is not a
oh,
slider.
I didn't see this. Like I didn't read anything. I'm just looking. Maybe it's just like the
It's
picture
big.
doesn't
No, it's a
provide.
big
Yeah,
thing.
the picture doesn't provide proper context. My other thing is there's like a skewer through it in the
I don't know
picture
if
I'm
you see
looking
that
at.
picture. See that picture relative
Oh,
to
see
like on
that's
a
a much more
tray?
generous
Yeah,
looking
it's
picture.
huge.
Yeah, okay. How are you going to eat this? Like we're curious to know, like
I don't know.
physically.
Oh yeah, because you can't. I know you don't like that part of it because you can't like practically, bite into it as it is. I'll
I
probably
think
take that
what you're,
top onion ring off, eat it, and
of course,
then maybe smush the rest together as much as I can.
I think you should only leave one onion ring. Take the rest. Take the two off.
You might be right. I might take 2
Mhm.
off. I'll just eat them on the side and then
Right.
press the rest of the burger together.
I hope you enjoy. I hope you enjoy a good time with your parents. I hope the Marlins win at this point. If I'm being honest with you. Like
Come on,
I
give me one win.
look. No. Like here's where
You
I
can
stand, and
say
I'm
you
being.
hope they win the series, but let me see a win tonight.
I'm okay. I'm cool with that. I hope you experience a win, but then I hope the Phillies lose the series.
That's fair.
Here's
That's nice.
here's where I sit. And I think my selfishness is incredibly understandable, especially given like the work I do and how closely connected it is to Philadelphia fans. I have forever a title against a Philly
All right, we're ready.
sports team.
I have to. I
No, and so
legitimately
like
have to go. I'm not doing this as
I don't
a cop
I
out.
don't want to ruin that. I don't want to be like 1-1 in that respect in my life. So I'll keep that there. I'm kind of rooting for the D-backs too in the NL, so we'll see how that goes. But anyway, let's get out of here. Brandon, give us 6 words. Go.
The Phillies are going to win.